Hey yo, we put free money where the mic is. He got it on lock like Rikers. Green rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!
Welcome back to the Money Talks Podcast, my fellow 707 brother.
Yes.
How are you doing, Michael?
I'm feeling so good, man. We made it through day 3. We're upright, which is more than I can say for a lot of our homies out there, but we're here, we're doing it.
Yeah, like half of the team is here. Our CEO didn't even accept we just won best activation booth, and our CEO
Congrats.
couldn't even thank you.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there to accept it, but we held it down for him. Actually, I was the only guy at the award ceremony, and I'm the newest member of the company. So I just am giving a speech, stalling, so not even knowing what to say.
Yeah.
And then the guy who put the booth together kicks me off the stage, and we made it happen. That's what MjBiz is all about, just fucking working through the kinks.
Rolling with the punches, man. There's so many variables here to make it all happen.
Right.
It really is pretty impressive that the community can come together and make this happen. Then there's, quirks and drawbacks, but it's an amazing time to be here.
Absolutely. And I've only been in cannabis like professionally for 3 months, and not a single person has been late to a podcast. I thought like cannabis, everyone's going to be at least 15 minutes late. The professionalism is real in the industry. You know?
Man, we've only got so many opportunities to hit that mark, and you got to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your story. Like, how did you begin? Are you originally from Northern California?
No, I'm originally from Michigan, so
Cool.
I started, underground in Michigan, growing cannabis in the mid to late 90s.
Wow.
And, when it was still a real problem to get caught with even a small amount of cannabis, let alone plants. And,
Yeah.
ended up growing in Michigan for about a decade before I moved to Northern California.
Wow.
And, it was a safer environment, 215 days. And it was a real special time in Humboldt and Arcata. Indoor at every third house was the estimate at the time. It was just an amazing time. The
Right.
grows were still small.
Mm-hmm.
Community was tight. People were supporting each other. It wasn't cutthroat. It wasn't competition with your neighbor. It was, here, I'll give you this strain. I'll take that strain. Like, hey, you're having this issue. Let me help you.
Right.
And there was a sense of community that you feel in places like this sometimes, but it's not as strong as it used to be with all the cutthroat corporate fucking raiders out here taking the team.
The hedge fund motherfuckers.
Oh, man. And you see those people falling out and the team
Yeah.
rising back up to take it.
That's awesome. So, growing in Michigan in the 90s, that took balls. How did you get the balls to do that?
I think it was part balls and part just being so driven and oblivious to the risk. It was
Right.
live it each day for its moments and go for it. And
Right.
you're like, oh, hey, we're gonna grow a crop, and then it's like, well, the crop's done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's run another one.
Right.
And it just started with, hey, I want to grow weed. Now, oh well, I've got the lights. It's set up. Let's keep rolling it. Hey, why don't we set up at your house, homie? And it just
Yeah.
grew, and it's this natural beast, and it never really got scary until the end.
Okay.
And then, you start having the signs that somebody's noticed you, and people are showing up at doors, and you see cop cars at the end of the street every day, and it's like, yeah, this is maybe real to them, and maybe I should get the fuck out.
Yeah. So you
Yep.
got out at the perfect time.
Got out at the perfect time, and, it was a really cool time in Northern California, like I said, and started focusing on soil and soil sciences and organics, and really learning the systems and the soil science. And then I was like, fuck, I want to automate. So I
Right.
started running hydro and looking deeper at those systems and synthetics and salts and what makes quality salts, what makes quality product. And that's when I fell in with Royal Gold, looking at the sustainability of cocoa versus peat moss. Royal Gold had just started. There were like 4 bags in our local hydro store, and I'm like, oh, cool, cocoa. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a local dude.
No way.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm track this dude down, and turned out I'd known him from side hustle.
Oh, cool. So what year did Royal Gold start, and were you like the 3rd, 4th employee there?
I think I was probably 5th or 6th.
Wow.
But there were only a few of us, and we all worked part-time. People came and went, and it started in, I think, 04, 05, where they were toying around with it. It really established properly in 06, and I joined in 07.
Right. So when people win awards, is it crazy being someone who was growing in the 90s, went to Humboldt County or like Northern California during the golden era, seeing that like there's like Emmy awards for cannabis. Is that kind of a trip?
It is such a trip, and I love it. I think that's the part that the industry needs. I've been a huge advocate of the Emerald Cup and Tim Blake and Taylor Blake and the family that's put together that community to celebrate and to create an award that means something.
Right.
And it's nice to see all of these things kind of spin off of that kind of Emerald Cup model, because it started with the High Times Cannabis Cups, right?
Right.
But I think Tim and Taylor really defined it in the way only NorCal can.
Totally. And it's funny because when I first met you, I could have sworn you were born and raised in Northern California because you have the vibe, and that's a compliment. Like
I appreciate that. When I found it, it was like coming home. So
right.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were like a Northern California boy trapped in Michigan, or is the Michigan still there?
The Michigan's still there. Michigan's an amazing place,
right?
And they've got a great cannabis scene now, and great growers, great genetics, and it's always been there. It was just so underground for so long. It's great to have that, but NorCal and Western Michigan have so many similarities. Small towns, on the water, good people, good nature. So first time I walked through the co-op in Arcata, saw the organic produce, walked on the beach, I was like, yeah, this is home.
Right.
I'm not going to go to prison for cannabis here. I've arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So what was the trimming situation? Because I actually got my start, the first time I made money in cannabis was trimming down on my luck. A friend had to grow up in Calistoga, and I just like slept in a car for a week, trimmed weed for 16 hours a day. I was probably the slowest trimmer in Northern California. That is an underrated job.
Oh man, it's a hard job.
It is.
Yeah.
I got vertigo. I actually fainted because you're looking at a small thing first.
Just gets so myopic. Yeah.
So what's the scene, what was the scene like in Northern California, like the Humboldt Emerald Triangle area with the trimmers? Like, was it just the same 5 trimmers? Was every season new people? Like,
there was a division in that early time, at least for myself there. There was a lot of indoor, and so indoor is a much different beast than the outdoor growers and the trim scenes there. So, the indoor, you'd have your homies and your homies' lady friends and, their friends. And, it was a evolving crew. I'm harvesting this week. Oh, my homie's harvesting over here this week too. So, all right, I'll take these 3. You guys got those guys. And it was just a family, and everybody shared, and everybody was getting paid great.
Right.
$250 a pound, trimming 2, 3, 4 pounds a day.
And back then, that's like $500 a pound now.
Oh man, it was so much fun, and everybody was buying sushi for their trimmers.
Wow.
And it was just like a giant party for 3-4 days. You get the crop down, you get it dealt with, and then it's like on to the next one.
Yeah.
Where the outdoor, they did have to be a little more controlled. You didn't want to take people to your farm. You didn't want to bring new people. You tried to keep the people you wanted, but you wanted valuable trimmers.
Totally.
You needed people that were going to go out there and get through a couple pounds a day and not drink all the beer, eat all the food. And that's why a lot of the farms focused on women. They're like, they eat less, they shit less, they make less mess, and there's always going to be trouble in little circles like that, drama, but it tended to be less dudes beefing up against each other.
Totally. You need female energy. It's
ground out that
small
mountain.
room with just 8 dudes doesn't seem fun.
Oh no, not at all.
And I'm sure having females, it encourages the men to work faster and maybe impress the females.
Of course. They're just trying to keep up. Right?
Yeah, totally. So what was like, you've seen this industry grow. What do you miss most about that time?
Oh, it was the family, the camaraderie, the support of each other, the running into all of your friends at the hydro store, not having to feel like somebody was trying to take your business.
Right.
Like you'd sell your homie's weed, your homie'd sell your weed. It was all like there was enough to go around. And as the prices started dropping in NorCal, you saw it starting to get a little more cutthroat and people wanting to focus on themselves. And, well, I'm not going to move your weed because I want to move my weed to this person next time. I'm going to starve them out for 2 weeks until mine's ready. And, there's always room to look out for yourself.
Right.
But at that time, there was so much more community driver to support each other. And there was so much more success there to share.
Right. And industries get successful when people help each other out instead of try to stab each other in the back.
And that's what you see at an event like this, where people that have been doing this a long time, boxing people out on their own, you start to see them disappear. They don't show up to as many events. Oh, now they're not even at BizCon. But the people that hold their own, hold their footprint, hold their family, and support it, they tend to keep growing, or at least hold their space and grow together with their community. That rising tide raising all ships is real.
Right.
You know, but if you want to separate yourself from the rest of the pack, it's a harder trudge.
Got it. So you start working with Royal Gold what year?
07.
07. And then you were number 5, 6 at the company. When did Royal Gold really start maybe coming into its own?
You know, it's interesting because we started manufacturing our own product. We worked with co-packers and our own recipes and our own processes in the early days, but we didn't have the infrastructure to build everything out, to make our own soils. And there started being quality control issues, and we realized really quickly, if we can't do this on our own and have control of every aspect, we can't stand behind it. We can't create a reliable medium. We can't create a platform for people to create their own platforms on. So we started doing it ourselves and honing in on the quality points. All right, we got to buffer the cocoa better. We've got to compost the wood products properly. We've got to understand all these things, and we've got to create systems that are repeatable. The same way growers at home do. You have to understand your inputs.
Yeah.
You have to understand your goal for your outputs and create a pathway to get there. And it's about learning from every mistake, not making it again, and preventing the next mistake because of your last mistake. And we started coming into our own really in the early to mid 10s, teens, right?
Cool.
Like 9, 10, 11, 215 was banging. People were growing. There were more farms every year. Everybody was building out. Everybody had 40 acres and 4 greenhouses in Humboldt.
Jesus.
And it was like dump trucks just in and out, constantly going out into the hills.
Wow.
And that market is essentially gone in Northern California. Now we ship to a few big key farms that are buying more soil, but they've put everybody around them out of business. We started coming into our own with the community as it developed, and that's when we started pushing product out to Colorado as it went legal, across the West Coast, and started getting demand as people left NorCal to go and chase greener pastures and higher retail markets, higher bulk markets for cannabis, where you could rock pounds in Colorado for $4,200 when in Humboldt it was $32. So it's like, sweet, I can grow just as much indoor. I'm going to Colorado, and a lot of people went and took those concepts, took the Royal Gold product with them, and those SOPs, and that's when it really started to pop.
That's awesome, because you could have. I mean, how hard was that to like adapt and? Because it's like adapt or die is the famous phrase. Were you guys kind of freaking out for a second there when like business started to slow down in Northern California, or was it like, fuck it, we're figuring this shit out?
We figured it out, and it displaced at the time that it was disappearing. Like, new markets emerged as the California market shrank. So we held our own, and we also continued to take market share, right? We're still a small company compared to some of these peat moss companies that are hundreds of millions of dollars that really don't care about the individual growers.
Right.
They may act like they care, but let's look at the business. Let's look at the bottom line. How much are most farms buying of peat moss compared to the greater cultivation industry? And it's such peanuts. Those guys just don't care, and we did, and started taking market share. We were the first to start testing our products as cannabis flower for heavy metals, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, as they rolled out the Prop 64 model before it even became a thing, looking at the parts per billion of these things and realizing inputs all over the country, even organic inputs that people trust, are riddled with all sorts of contaminants.
Right.
So like that really helped us start to grow and gain market share, to stand with the growers and say, no, we're taking it on the chin. We're paying for this testing. We're eliminating inputs that could contaminate or jeopardize your product. We need you to pass for us to be successful. If you're not successful as a grower, we're not successful to supply you. So let's work together.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I interview someone like you, and then yesterday and the day before I'm interviewing like venture capitalists, people with like business backgrounds who just pivoted into cannabis 4 years ago, and like the difference. How well do you work with those people? Like when those people first started to get into the industry, were you a little weary, or because they are really cool people? Like a lot of them are stoned. And
there's some great folks out there, and I think in the early days of the venture capital there were more predators, and not that there aren't still. But there's less to predate upon. There's not money falling out of every crack in the industry anymore. It's gotten tighter. Retail's dropped, wholesale's dropped. People aren't just able to make stacks and racks like they used to. Right? So the venture capitalist people, the people that are out here with money now, actually generally have some skin in the game. They're passionate about it.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to relate. It was really disheartening to watch that predatory vibe in the early days. And it was like,
when did that first start happening? Like, when did the predators hit the industry?
Early 64 days is when it started like really being clear.
64?
Prop 64 was the legalization in Canada, in California.
Gotcha.
So, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, what all went first, but the big industry was always California. And so like, while people were chasing it around and there were some, corporate Chad vibes out there in the early days in Colorado, it really blew up when the California market opened up to VC. And equity capital, things like that.
Yeah, interesting. And that's like with the people I've interviewed with business backgrounds, like the one thing they all have in common is they're truly passionate and they have so much love and respect for what you do. They're not.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's a ton of people. Like, I like to think that I contributed to the roots of this industry. I've been in it for 30 years.
Wow.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I learned from people that had been in it 30 years before I started. Like, we can claim this legacy past all we want.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the OGs. Look at the people who were smuggling seeds from Afghanistan in the 60s and 70s in India and, bringing hash back in their fucking boot lockers. And, like, those are the people that created the culture. But they took it from a culture that was already there.
Right.
That had been there for hundreds of years. So, like, you got to pay homage. If you're going to try and put yourself in that position, you also have to recognize what came before and honor it.
Right, exactly. And I think the younger generation, just in general, like with music, because I'm in the music game, and a lot of these kids that are like 20, 21 years old, these new rappers haven't heard it. Like, they don't know the 90s, the 80s. They don't know KRS-One. And I'm like, if you don't know KRS-One, you have no business calling yourself a rapper. But that's just me, like, being old, screaming at the sky.
Right. But they're like, but I put in the work. You're like, yeah, but you've been putting in the work since... I was 30.
Right. Exactly.
So, you weren't even born when we were putting in the work.
Totally.
And that it's important to recognize that of our elders.
So, this is the Money Talks podcast.
Yeah,
so
let's
talk about money. So, when how hard did you kind of learn did you learn business on the fly, like as your company was scaling? Were you, how tough was that transition, like learning the business behind, the art?
Well, that's a great question. So the owner, Chad Waters, has always been a great businessman. And I think that that's what gave a platform for us to all create a better product, is he was able to put it in the context of how a business functions. So big shout out to Chad. He's, legacy operator. He's been doing it for a really long time. His heart is deeply in it, like many of us. And he's a good person. And having that business acumen with morals is what gave Royal Gold an opportunity to get out there and survive, and the goal of creating a product that allows people to make money. Of course, we need to make money as a company to survive, but we want our distributors to make money. We want our retailers to make money. But for any of that to happen, we need our customers to be successful. So it's about looking at, all right, where is the income that we're expecting to bring in as a company going to start? How do we make those people successful? And then grow that as a platform and a business.
Nice. So what do you think makes Royal Gold, like, what's the thing that makes Royal Gold different than any other cannabis brand? What's helped it stand the test of time, I guess?
I think a lot of it is staying in our lane, focusing on doing what we do the best and standing behind it. And especially in the cultivation side, there were a lot of people throwing everything at the wall that would stick. There was so much money in liquid nutrients. There was so much money in all these supplements and all these things that brands that were successful with a couple niche products overexpanded all these crazy things and couldn't support it, and the brands disappeared. We stuck to our lane. Chad's like, we're not doing that. We're going to make the best soil, and the next batch is going to be better than the last batch, and it's going to be the same for the people every time. We're going to give them an opportunity to build their empire.
Got it.
It's not about building our empire. It's about giving other people an opportunity. and then it comes full circle.
No, it's interesting. A lot of like successful businesses say like just find one thing that you're better at than anyone else, and you won't go out of business. You know?
And that's the truth.
Yeah. That's what I talked to my background also was in like reality TV casting, so I talked to like restaurant owners and I do the Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen type shit. So I talk to chefs, and that's what they say. They're like, if you want, just have one item on the menu that's the best like chicken parm in town, and you will be a famous restaurant. Because like the fucking menus where there's 70 things and everything tastes like Applebee's food, you're not really gonna go anywhere. But if you have 9 items on your menu, all the fancy restaurants literally have 10 items on the menu. You know?
And they'll adjust minor things to make it right for you, but really they're confident in the core of what they do.
Right.
They built something with strength and integrity, and they expect it to stand on its own 2 feet.
Totally. So what does life look like for you, like, you know, outside of cannabis? How's like your work-life balance? Are you...
You know, there's days it's awesome. There's days it's a struggle. You know, we're out here at MjBiz. We're all putting in 14, 16-hour days, grinding, networking, on the floor, doing our like basic 9-to-5 vibe. But then you have to take it out to the streets. You have to take it out to the clubs. You have to take it out to the events with the people. And it's hard to strike balance at times like that. But then you get back home, you're able to ground back out, focus on it, get out in the redwoods, get out in the forest, connect with family, and connect with your coworkers and their families. And that's one of the primary strengths of Royal Gold is all of the leadership is always focused on creating a family and a network. So we support each other. You know, we end up out together at home as opposed to like, leave me alone, I don't want to see my coworkers after work. No, we actually value each other. That's awesome. It's a really amazing thing. You know, people are playing cornhole after work, hanging out. It's, you know, doing golf tournaments, all sorts of cool, fun stuff as a team. And, and that's what allows the balance to feel more real.
Do you believe, because a lot of bosses say that your work is not your family, these are just your coworkers. Do you believe that your work friends can be your family?
Well, at Royal Gold, we're so blessed to have that be the case. I mean, a lot of the folks that work there have known each other for 10, 20 years before. We all work together. We recognize talent. We recognize drive. We recognize willingness to do the right thing. And those are the people that tend to gravitate. And we've built and promoted from within. We're like, hey, you can learn this job. You're a capable human. You're doing a great job. Let's grow you together. We don't need to reach outside of our community to bring people in. Humboldt's small. There's, you know, a couple 100,000 people in the county. You've got to focus on the people that you value that are going to show up every day and value you and value the company as their own.
Right. And it's crazy how many people work in cannabis who have never been to Humboldt. Like, that's
big time.
Yeah. So what's something that a lot of people get wrong about Humboldt?
You know, the safety. I think a lot of people think like, oh, it's a dangerous place. You don't want to go out in the back roads and this and that.
The documentaries.
All the Murder Mountain BS. And like, man, I've been doing this with Royal Gold for over a decade, traveling, doing shows all over the country. When Murder Mountain came out, everywhere we went, people walked by, oh, made in Humboldt, Murder Mountain. And we're like, no, it's nothing like that, man. It's nothing like that. That's one little story that was sensationalized. A ton of the people interviewed for that were really unhappy with how they were edited and portrayed. Man. And it's just not what Humboldt is.
Right.
Like, it's beauty, it's potlucks, it's small farmers valuing each other, supporting each other, you know, cutting through the back road on the mountain to get to the neighbor's house to borrow sugar and drop them off a pound of butter. It's like, that's what it is, man. And I've never been afraid driving around backwoods anywhere else in Humboldt because nobody's going to fuck with you just for the sake of fucking with you. If you're in the right place for the right reasons, people will embrace it.
Right. I mean, if you might get shot if you break into someone's house and try to steal their food.
Yeah.
That's anywhere. It happens in Texas.
Everywhere, man. If you're dressed in all black and hiking in somebody's backyard, I would expect to get shot, you know? That's just real life.
I agree. So is it trippy? Because like I live in Los Angeles, so I get to go from the craziness of Las Vegas back to the craziness of LA, but you get to go to like the peace and quiet of Northern California. Is it kind of like a culture shock when you go back there from Vegas? Or even being in Vegas?
Not anymore. You know, it's instantly coming home. Is like, as you're flying into Arcata, like you see the redwoods, you see the bay, you see the coast, and you look around and you can take that deep breath, and it's embracing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's almost more culture shock landing in the city.
Wow.
Getting your head together when you hit the ground in Vegas or in New York City for an event or in Los Angeles. Dude, it's crazy. We don't have traffic. We don't have,
I know.
any of that stuff. So it's hard to adapt once you get here, but it comes quick enough.
Yeah. What would you say what makes you want to pull your hair out about this industry in 2024? What pisses you off the most about the way the industry is today?
Well, there's a lot of things that are frustrating, but really the valuation of what the grower's getting for what they're putting in has to change at some point. And it's broken because of the corporate model, because they're chasing the cheapest commodity pricing that you can get. One organization grew more than all of Humboldt County this year.
Wow.
In California. And that's crazy. They can drive the price down as a corporation to the point where it affects an entire population.
Jesus.
That is not a realistic way to conduct good business. It doesn't make sense for the state. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense for the growers, and it doesn't make sense for the industry. The retail price is still stupid because of all the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting $250 to $500 a pound for quality sun-grown if they're lucky.
Yeah.
That's a broken system.
Yeah.
People are able to use all of the resources for indoor, which I don't have a problem with the indoor, but how can you grow that much indoor with all of those resources and all of that cost and still have it be comparable in the marketplace? It's all about the taxation and the fees associated that really break the way cultivators can actually get a quality product to market.
So what's the solution?
Well, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it already. And it's about uniting, and it's about standing up. Humboldt County Growers Alliance and a lot of other really good groups are working hard to create equity, to get in front of their local governments, to say, hey, no, this excise tax doesn't work. I understand we all thought everybody was going to make millions when these laws passed and we set this system up, but that is not the case. You're not even going to make nickels if you drive all of the businesses in your jurisdiction out of business. So it has to come from the community that recognizes, hey, actually, these growers are a contributor. They are a valuable part of our community. Even if you don't smoke weed, have nothing to do with it, that income cycling in your community is valuable.
Right.
It really is. You see it in the restaurant scene in Arcata. You see it in the retail scene in Arcata. As those businesses disappeared, so went the industry.
Right. Damn, I'm learning a lot here. Like I said, I'm new to cannabis, and I didn't, how active are you? It seems like not only are you, do you work in cannabis, but you're an activist as well, it seems like.
I try to be. It's what brought me into Northern California in a big way. I worked for the Cannabis Action Network as a volunteer in '97 for a summer, going from concert to concert, setting up a booth, talking about hemp plastics, getting signatures on petitions, talking about hempcrete, talking about the medicinal aspect of hemp and cannabis and trying to legalize it. And that led me to doing other environmental and social nonprofit work, which kind of helped land me in Northern California. So I want to contribute to my community.
Right.
And I feel like everybody can find a way to do that. We don't all have a ton of time.
Right.
But you can put a little bit of effort in here, a little bit of effort there, help your local school, help your local nonprofit, help your local community activism network. It goes a long way.
Totally. And you have your own radio. Is that like your own radio show? Tell me about your,
So,
you use your voice. You're very good at talking.
Thanks. Other people would say shut the fuck up, but I appreciate that. So yeah, we do Royal Grown Radio. It's a podcast focusing on the culture of cultivation and how that transfers from cannabis to other cultivation, and kind of trying to document a lot of the scene and a lot of the contributors to Humboldt County, to that entire cannabis network. We've traveled all over the country. We, featured Planet 13 a couple years ago. A lot of really cool organizations, and just asking the same questions you are. Mm-hmm. What makes you tick? What makes you want to contribute to this community?
Right.
What brought you to this community? And, how are you looking to improve it? And having those conversations and telling those stories of the people that came before us.
Totally. That's huge. Yeah, just like it's interesting. Like we have such different perspectives because you're 30 years in the game. I'm 3 months in the game, and
Yeah.
it's cool how no one like judged me. No one is like, oh, he's just another culture vulture. Like everyone just welcomed me with open arms. Like so, it's an industry that I hope I don't get fired from.
Right? Well, and that's the thing. Anybody who's got the good intent and sticks with it, like,
Right.
come on in, man, with open arms. That's what this community's always been. I felt welcomed into the cannabis community from a very young age and all the way through. And it can get a little bit elitist and exclusionary when you look at the way people try and create branding around exclusive opportunities. And you know, a lot of the big names out there that want to be cooler than everybody else. And
Yeah.
that's cool. That's what you want to do. But like, I think the power in this industry comes from the unity.
Yeah. And without growers, there's nothing. Like
There is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those people that risked life, limb, family, and everything
Right.
for a long time. Like, you know, look at like Dennis Hunter from Canacraft. The guy was one of the largest busts ever in Northern California. At the time, was the largest bust ever. He came out, did his time, fucking right back into it, building community, growing the scene in every different way. He can't help but fight for the plant.
Yeah.
No matter what. And that's the type of people that drive this industry. And that he'll be the first one to be like, well, the people that came before me that got me into it, that's what created this culture. So it's, you know, paying homage to the roots, but bringing in the fresh team, dude. We need homies. We need fresh team. We need to grow this together with integrity.
And it's interesting, not to just make this about me again, but like I can't even smoke cannabis without having a psychotic episode. I used to smoke all the time and it was like my favorite drug, but now I just think about like the world ending and like where I'm gonna be in 5 years. Am I making the right decisions? And I like pull all-nighters, I get insomnia. So I maybe want to pick your brain. What am I doing wrong? Because I want cannabis to work for me. Everyone's so happy.
Well, you know, it's finding strains that work for you that don't create that anxiety, because I feel you. There's stuff that'll just, you know, doesn't function well for me.
Right.
But also getting your dose right. You don't have to smoke a giant joint to get the benefit from cannabis. One small hit, one little dab. People overconsume, and I'm certainly guilty for many years of rolling giant joints as fast as I could light them. It's not necessary. Hey, we have fun doing that, but it's not necessarily the most healing, beneficial way to use cannabis.
Right.
Find your product, find your dose, but also use it when it is appropriate for you. When you have that time to be in the woods and let things loose and let your mind move away from the end of the world catastrophizing, because it's easy to do, man. It's really easy to do, but you got to find what works for you. And if it's not smoking weed during the day, or if it's, you know, only on weekends, that's great. There's no judgment on how often or why or when you do or don't consume. There are so many major influencers in this community that used to smoke a ton of weed that don't smoke at all anymore.
Wow.
It's really interesting because in the early days of a lot of these trade shows, it was like a giant smoke fest outside all the time with all the vendors. And now a lot of those people are like, oh man, I'll smoke one joint at the end after dinner before I go back to bed. Like, I'm working here. I got to keep my head about me. And
Totally.
it's about finding what works for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been surprised with like the how few people I noticed were like stoned. I mean, I think people smoked a little bit, but nobody was just like the Cheech and Chong, the prototypical stoner from the 70s. You know, people are about their business, which is interesting.
It's important. It's hard to get so blazed early that then at like 2 o'clock, you're like, oh shit, I'm done. We got 4 more hours before the after parties start. Oh no.
Right.
You got to pace yourself. Same thing with drinking, same thing with any consumption, even food. Pace yourself, know what works.
Totally. So I have some, before we end, I have some rapid fire money related questions.
Let's go.
Answer, 1 second. I'm gonna just you have 15 seconds to answer each one. So the first thing that comes to your mind, there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
Number 1, what's the dumbest purchase you've ever made?
Oh man, that's a lot. I purchased stupid weed, stupid alcohol, and stupid food. That's for sure.
What's stupid weed?
You know, early days you'd pay $420 an ounce for an exotic strain, and it turned out to be shit. You know, but the access wasn't there. So, buying sour diesel that wasn't sour diesel in the early days, chasing down the special train wreck that wasn't train wreck, things like that.
Yeah, the shit that just would crumble in your hand and it just turns into crumbs.
Just junk.
What's the smartest purchase you've ever made?
Smartest purchase I've ever made is land in Northern California.
Nice. The plane ticket to Northern California.
Yep.
Or did you drive?
I drove, but buying property in Northern California is it's paradise, and it's not going anywhere fast.
Yeah. Congratulations. A lot of people wish they were in your shoes. Where do you have property, in Arcata or Humboldt?
Just outside of Arcata. Yep.
Nice.
Beautiful.
If someone gives you $100,000 and you have to choose if someone gives you $100,000 and you have to choose between investing it or traveling for a year, what do you choose?
Well, I'd like to choose 50-50, but
not an acceptable answer.
Track record tells me I would travel and spend it.
Nice.
Although, in my mid-40s, I'd like to think I'd make better decisions.
Yeah. Traveling's always a good decision.
Yeah.
So you've been around a lot of quote-unquote ballers, people who make a lot of money in the industry. What do all rich people have in common?
I don't know that there is one thing that all rich people have in common other than having a lot of money. What I've learned, the more and more ballers I've met through this industry, is some of the most humble, gritty-looking motherfuckers, dirt-stained boots and dirty fingernails, eating cheap-ass food, have the most money in barrels in the hills, and a fancy silk suit motherfucker with $500 shoes is broke at home. So, the only thing really in common is the actual money in real rich people.
Totally. I live in LA, so I relate to that all too much. The fancier you look, the shittier your apartment probably is.
Putting on airs, baby.
Exactly. What's the lowest amount of money you'd go streaking at an NFL game for?
Oh man, that's an expensive sex offense. I would say $1 million plus.
$1 million.
I mean, if you got to go declare to your neighbor you're a sex offender because you blazed through the fucking Lions game, that's a challenge.
Wait, do you have to register as a sex offender after going streaking?
That's a sexual crime. That's public indecency exposure.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That is definitely worth more.
So yeah, that's an expensive mistake right there.
Would you rather have no money or no friends?
No money, man. Family gets you through.
Love it. This is a trivia question. Whose face is on the $10 bill?
Hamilton.
Nice. No one gets that correctly. But the 20, because no one carries cash anymore. So anyone like 30, and I don't think they've ever seen a $10 bill.
I'm not going to step over a $10 bill, man. I come from the 90s. A 10 spot had meaning.
Hell yeah. And then, this is a rebate company. What do you know about rebates? Have you ever worked with rebates? What's your experience?
I have not personally, but I see it all over, and I see the value in the rebates, and I think that they are so underutilized. I think that this entire platform you guys are running here is a huge opportunity for people to step up, recognize the opportunities that are there for them, and the reason that those opportunities benefit everyone, including them.
Yes. Amazing. Thanks for that commercial. That is going to be clipped and on Instagram.
Let's get it, baby.
And then last question, is there such thing, there's a big debate on the internet, is there such thing as free money? Does free money exist?
I don't think it does, man. I don't think free money exists in one way or another.
Free money. That's my name. So do I not exist?
Well, that's a trick question. Yeah. You got me.
But keep going. Sorry for cutting you off.
No.
Why do you think? Why does free money not exist?
Because in some way or another, free money costs you in morality. It costs you integrity. It can, in some way, it's going to impact you. Whether the money just changes the way you live, it changes the way you think. There's no such thing as a no impact, and that's a cost.
Interesting. It's the best answer we've got. It's not the answer my boss was looking for, but it's a very accurate answer. But what do you think the closest thing? Would you say rebates is one of the closest things you can get to free money?
Getting money in your coffers for not changing anything, for just doing what you're doing and ending up with more money in your bank account is an absolute win-win for everybody. If you don't look into those opportunities, you're missing out, and you're not utilizing your platform to the best of its ability.
Congrats, you just got yourself a job as a salesman for Green Rebates, because these guys couldn't have said it better.
Let's go.
You're awesome. Michael, this is really...
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.